The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber hissed open as Ambassador Voltara rushed inside, her crystalline body crackling with energy from panic. Her usually calm blue glow was now a frantic red as she stumbled toward the central podium. Around her, representatives from dozens of species turned their attention to the Zephyrian diplomat. "Emergency session," she called out, her voice breaking through the chamber's translator systems in waves of desperate sound. "Code black. All systems alert." The chamber fell silent. In 3,000 years of galactic civilization, a code black had never been declared. Even the ancient HFY War hadn't reached such levels of threat. The floating jellyfish-like Aquarians stopped their gentle movements. The rock-bodied Terrans ceased their deep, rumbling conversations. Even the energy beings from the Nexus cluster focused their attention downward. Voltara activated the central holographic display with trembling appendages. What appeared made several species gasp in horror. Her 17 star systems should have been glowing on the galactic map. There was nothing. Complete darkness. Not even the background radiation that marked dead systems remained. "The Kepler sector is gone," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "The Zephyrian colonies, the mining worlds of Zarian Prime, the agricultural systems of the Outer Gardens. 17 systems. Billions of lives. All consumed in less than 4 rotations." Terran representative, his stone face cracking with concern, spoke up. "Consumed? What do you mean consumed, Ambassador?" Voltara's form flickered as she accessed her memory banks. 3 days ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected massive energy signatures moving through the Kepler sector. At first, we thought it might be a natural phenomenon, perhaps a rogue black hole or dimensional rift. But then, the hologram shifted, showing surveillance footage from the last moments of Zephyrian Prime. The beautiful crystal cities, the floating gardens, the millions of Zephyrian citizens going about their daily lives. Then darkness appeared at the edge of the system. Not the darkness of space, but something that seemed to devour light itself. The Devourers whispered General Vexera, the Council's chief military commander. His 6 arms tensed as recognition dawned in his compound eyes. The ancient texts spoke of them, but we thought they were myths. The footage continued. Massive geometric shapes, each the size of a moon, emerged from the darkness. They moved with purpose, their surfaces covered in intricate patterns that hurt to look at directly. As they approached the planets, beams of energy shot out, not destroying the worlds, but somehow unmaking them.
Ow.
The matter didn't explode or burn. It simply ceased to exist, converted into energy that the geometric constructs absorbed. Our fleets responded immediately, Voltara continued, tears of liquid light streaming down her crystalline face. Admiral Zixera led our finest ships, the pride of Zephyrian engineering. Quantum torpedoes, plasma cannons, reality disruptors, weapons that could crack planets. The Devourers absorbed them all. Not deflected them or destroyed them, absorbed them and grew stronger. The hologram showed the space battle, sleek Zephyrian cruisers firing their most powerful weapons at the geometric monstrosities. Each shot was met with extending tendrils that simply absorbed the energy. Then the Devourers fought back. Their attack wasn't violent or explosive. It was methodical, precise, terrifying. Ships didn't explode, they came apart at the molecular level, their matter joining the growing mass of the ancient machines. The Terran Federation sent their dreadnoughts, added General Dexara grimly. The Aquarian Deep Fleet emerged from the ocean worlds. The Vrexti committed their war moon. Devastator. Nothing worked. The Devourers adapted to everything we threw at them within minutes. Every weapon system, every tactic, every strategy, they countered it all. An elderly Aquarian floated forward, her translucent body pulsing with concern. How is this possible? Our combined technologies represent millions of years of advancement. Because they're older, Voltara replied. The archives we recovered before Zephyrian Prime fell. It contained references to the Devourers from the earliest days of galactic civilization. These machines were here before any of us achieved spaceflight. They've been sleeping, waiting, learning. They know our technologies because they've observed our development for millennia. The chamber erupted in shocked conversations. Species that had never shown fear were now openly terrified. The geometric constructs on the hologram continued their methodical advance, leaving nothing but empty space in their wake. 18 systems. In 4 days, General Vexera announced to the chamber. At this rate, the entire galaxy has perhaps a year before complete consumption. Our greatest minds, our most advanced AIs, our most powerful weapons, all useless against entities that can simply absorb and adapt to anything we create. Veltara steadied herself against the podium. We are broadcasting an emergency signal to every inhabited world, every space station, every ship in the galaxy. We are asking for anyone who might have ideas, weapons, or strategies we haven't considered. We need heroes. We need miracles. We need someone, anyone, who can think of something we can't. The message began transmitting across thousands of light years, reaching civilizations both advanced and primitive. Carrying one simple plea that would echo through space for days to come, the bridge of the EU's resilience hummed quietly as captain. Lee Dong-wook reviewed star charts in the Outer Rim territories. His small exploration fleet had been mapping unexplored systems for 6 months, far from Earth's main shipping lanes. The work was routine but important. Humanity was still new to the galactic community and needed to establish their presence. In unclaimed space, Lieutenant Park Hae-jin was monitoring long-range communications when her console suddenly erupted with activity. Captain, I'm picking up a massive broadcast on all frequencies. It's in multiple alien languages, sir. Dong-wook looked up from his charts. Put it through the universal translator. The bridge speakers crackled to life with a desperate voice that made everyone stop what they were doing. The translation was rough, but the meaning was crystal clear. The galaxy was dying, and they needed help from anyone willing to fight. Sir, this is incredible, Park said, her fingers flying over her console. The broadcast is coming from the Galactic Council itself. I'm reading quantum signatures from dozens of species. This isn't a hoax. The message played again, and this time, the translator had refined the words. The ambassador's voice carried such raw terror that it made the human crew uncomfortable. Dong-wook had heard fear before during his military service, but this was different. This was the sound of an entire civilization facing extinction. Chief. Engineer Yoon Sang-ho emerged from the engine room, wiping grease from his hands. Captain, did you hear that transmission? Sounds like the whole galaxy's in trouble. Before Dong-wook could respond, the communications screen flickered to life. Captain Kim Tae-han appeared from the bridge of the UES Defiance, his escort frigate running parallel to the Resilience. Behind him on a secondary screen was Captain No Min-woo from the supply ship US Harmony. You both heard it too? Tae-han said without preamble. The question is, what do we do about it? Our orders are to complete the mapping mission, Min-woo pointed out, though his voice lacked conviction. Command didn't send us out here to fight ancient robot monsters. Dong-wook pulled up the tactical display, showing their fleet's position relative to the conflict zone. We're closer than any other human ships. By the time we report back to Earth and wait for official orders, how many more systems will be consumed? The 3 captains stared at each other through their screens. They all knew Earth's bureaucracy moved slowly, especially when it came to alien affairs. The human government was still cautious about getting involved in galactic politics. There's something else, Park interrupted, her voice tense. I'm monitoring alien military channels. Zephyrians just lost their entire home fleet. The Terran. Federation's dreadnoughts are retreating. Captain, whatever these devourers are, they're winning. Tae-han leaned forward on his screen. My grandmother used to tell stories about the old wars on Earth. She said the worst thing wasn't losing battles. It was when good people did nothing while others suffered. The supply manifest shows we have enough provisions for extended deployment, added Min-woo quietly. And our torpedo bays are fully loaded from the last supply run. Dong-wook made his decision. All ships, plot a course for the Galactic Council's emergency coordinates. We're going to help. The journey took 18 hours at maximum warp. During the trip, the human crew studied everything they could about the Devourer threat. The alien. Databases were filled with tactical reports, all ending the same way. complete defeat. The machines seemed to counter every strategy within minutes. They're learning from each engagement, observed Lieutenant Commander Bei Sujin, the fleet's tactical officer. Every weapon, every formation, every trick, they adapt to it and become stronger. When they dropped out of warp at the staging area, the sight was both magnificent and terrifying. Hundreds of alien ships from dozens of species floated in formation around a massive space station. The vessels ranged from sleek Aquarian bioships that looked like living creatures to the geometric Terran battleships that resembled floating sea. At ease, the human ships looked tiny by comparison. The Resilience was a modified Explorer-class vessel, built for long-range missions rather than combat. The Defiance was an escort frigate designed to fight pirates, not ancient machine gods. The Harmony was essentially a flying warehouse with defensive weapons. As they approached the command station, alien voices filled the communication channels. Most were speaking in their native languages, but the universal translator caught fragments of conversations. More refugees from the outer sectors, ... Another supply convoy destroyed, ... We need reinforcements, not more civilians, ... The docking bay of the command station was enormous, designed to accommodate the largest alien vessels. The 3 human ships looked like toys as they settled into their assigned berths. Through the transparent aluminum viewing ports, the crews could see aliens they'd only read about in textbooks. Commander Zix of the Galactic Defense Force was waiting for them in the docking bay. The 8-foot-tall insectoid beings, compound eyes fixed on the small human delegation with obvious disappointment. "You are the respondents from the Sol system?" Zix asked, his mandibles clicking with what the translator interpreted as disdain. 3 vessels? This is your contribution to the greatest crisis in galactic history? Lee Dongwook stepped forward, his crew behind him. They looked small and primitive compared to the towering aliens around them, but there was something in their posture that suggested they weren't intimidated. "We received your distress call," Dongwook said simply. "We're here to help." "You need us to do?" Zix's compound eyes studied the humans more carefully. "Do you understand what you're facing? These are not pirates or rebels. Devourers have consumed entire star systems. Our greatest fleets have been destroyed." "We understand," replied Tehan. "That's why we came." The first battle began at 0800's Galactic Standard Time. Admiral Kextorn's massive command ship, the Eternal Vigilance, led a fleet of over 200 vessels from 12 different species. The formation was perfect, textbook military strategy, refined over thousands of years of interstellar warfare. The Devourers appeared at the edge of the system like a nightmare made real. 7 geometric constructs, each the size of a small moon, moved in synchronized patterns that hurt to look at directly. Their surfaces shifted and rippled with mechanical precision, covered in symbols that seemed to rewrite themselves as they moved. "All ships attack formation Delta 7, Admiral Kextorn commanded. Concentrate fire on the lead construct." The alien fleet opened fire with everything they had. Its plasma cannons that could melt asteroids, quantum torpedoes that could crack planets, reality disruptors that could tear holes in space itself. The combined firepower of 12 civilizations lit up the darkness like a second sun. The Devourers absorbed it all. Captain Lee Dongwook watched from the bridge of the Resilience. The magnificent alien weapons simply vanished into the geometric shapes. The constructs didn't even slow down. Instead, they began to glow brighter as if the attacks were feeding them. "Energy absorption at 100%, reported Lieutenant Park Heejin, her voice tight with disbelief. "They're not just blocking the attacks, they're eating them." The Devourers responded with mechanical precision. Beams of dark energy lanced out from their surfaces, striking the alien ships with surgical accuracy. But these weren't explosive weapons. The ships hit by the beams simply came apart. Their hulls dissolved at the molecular level, their crews vanishing into energy that flowed back to the constructs. "Retreat. All ships retreat," Admiral Kextorn ordered, but it was too late. The Devourers had analyzed the alien formation and were systematically targeting command ships, supply vessels, and key tactical positions. Within minutes, half the fleet was gone. "They're learning," whispered Chief Engineer Yoon Sung-ho from his station. "Look at their attack patterns. Each shot is more precise than the last. The retreat was chaos, ships fleeing in all directions, while the Devourers methodically hunted them down. The geometric constructs moved with terrifying efficiency there, targeting systems adapting to each ship's evasion patterns within seconds. That's when Lieutenant Choi Min-ho from the UES Defiance made his crazy suggestion over the comm channel. "Captain Kim? What if we just ... ram them?" The bridge of the Resilience fell silent. Captain Kim, Taehan's voice came through the speakers, incredulous. "Min-ho, that's suicide. Our ships would be destroyed on impact." "Maybe," Dongwook said, slowly, studying the tactical display. "But look at their movement patterns. They're positioning themselves to intercept logical escape routes. They're countering everything we do because they can predict it." Lieutenant Commander Bae Sujin caught on. "First, they're machines. They think like machines. They expect us to act rationally, to preserve our ships and crews. But what if we don't?" Dongwoo continued. "What if we do something completely insane?" The alien commanders were screaming orders over the communication channels, trying to organize a proper retreat. Devourers were systematically destroying ships that followed standard evasion protocols. But they seemed to pause when faced with unpredictable behavior. "All human ships, this is Dongwook," he broadcast, "going to try something stupid. Break formation and attack using random patterns. Don't think about it. Just do whatever feels wrong." Captain Kim Taehan was the first to respond. The used Defiance suddenly spun around and charged directly at the nearest Devourer construct, its engines screaming at maximum power. Instead of flying in evasive patterns, it moved in a chaotic spiral that defied all tactical logic. The targeting system hesitated for a crucial second. Its beams missed the wildly spinning frigate by meters. That second of confusion was all Taehan needed to slip past the construct's defense grid and ram his ship into its surface. The impact should have destroyed the Defiance instantly. Instead, the ship's reinforced hull cracked through the construct's outer layer, revealing the mechanical interior beneath. Sparks and strange fluids leaked from the wound as the geometric shape's perfect symmetry was broken for the first time. "It worked," Park shouted from her station. The construct's energy output just dropped by 15%. And the Harmony followed suit, using his cargo ship's superior acceleration to perform barrel rolls that made no tactical sense whatsoever. The supply ship danced between energy beams like a drunk butterfly, somehow avoiding destruction through sheer unpredictability. The alien commanders watched in amazement as the three small human ships caused more damage to the Devourers than their entire fleet. The construct's perfect coordination began to falter as they struggled to compute responses to actions that defied logic. "Boarding party, prepare for deployment," Sergeant Ogiwan announced over the internal comm. Her Marine unit had been studying the breach Taehan's ramming attack had created. "We're going inside." "Inside?" Chief Engineer Yoon gasped. "Sergeant, we don't know what's in there." "That's the point," O replied, loading her plasma rifle. "If we don't know what we're doing, they can't predict it either." The boarding pods launched from the Resilience like bullets, carrying O and her 12-person team directly into the wound in the construct's hull. The pods weren't designed for combat insertion. They were exploration vehicles meant for investigating derelict ships. But that's exactly what made them perfect for this mission. Inside the construct, the Marines found themselves in a maze of mechanical corridors that pulsed with energy. The walls were covered in circuits that seemed to flow like liquid metal, and the air hummed with electronic sounds that hurt their ears. "Remember," O told her team as they set charges on what looked like important machinery. "We're not trying to destroy this thing, we're trying to confuse it, make it waste processing. Power trying to figure out what we're up to." The Marines split up and began sabotaging random systems. They didn't understand the technology, so they couldn't make strategic choices. They just broke things at random, following their instincts rather than any tactical plan. The effect was immediate. The construct's movements became erratic as its internal systems tried to compensate for the seemingly random damage. Warning lights flashed in patterns that hurt to look at, and mechanical voices spoke in languages that predated galactic civilization. The construct's energy signature is fluctuating, reported Park from the Resilience. Whatever they're doing in there, it's working. Gosh. For the first time since the ancient machines had awakened, the Devourers were showing signs of strain. Their perfect coordination wavered as they struggled to process the chaos the humans had introduced into their logical systems. The tide of battle was beginning to turn. Not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through the uniquely human ability to do something completely crazy when all else fails. Major Bang Sujin had been awake for 36 hours straight, her eyes red from staring at alien data streams flowing across her screens. The captured Devourer memory core sat in containment fields around her makeshift laboratory, pulsing with ominous energy. Every few minutes, the crystalline structures would emit sounds that made her teeth ache. "Captain, you need to see this," she called to Dongwook, who was reviewing battle reports from the last engagement. The humans had managed to damage 3 Devourer constructs, but at a terrible cost. The used Defiance was running on emergency power. They'd lost 8 Marines in the boarding actions. Dong-WOOK, approachy. Pulled up combat footage from Lieutenant Choi Minho's ramming attack. The timestamp showed the exact moment the Devourer construct hesitated, just for 0.3 seconds, but enough to create the opening they needed. "They can't understand why we do things that hurt our own chances of survival," Sujin continued, her voice growing excited. "When Minho chose to ram that construct, the Devourers spent precious processing power trying to calculate the tactical advantage, but there wasn't one. He did it because he was angry." Captain Kim Tahayan limped onto the bridge, his left arm in a makeshift sling from the last battle. His ship was barely holding together, but his eyes burned with determination. "So you're saying these ancient machines can be beaten by acting like idiots?" "Not idiots," Dongwook corrected, studying the data streams. "Humans. They're built to counter logical military strategies developed over millions of years of galactic warfare. But they've never faced an enemy that fights on pure emotion." Communication console crackled to life. Admiral Kextorn's voice filled the bridge, tired and desperate. Human vessels were detecting massive Devourer reinforcements approaching the Zarian system. 57 constructs, the largest force we've seen. If they break through our lines there, they'll have a clear path to the core worlds. Through the viewports, the assembled fleet looked like a collection of broken toys. The magnificent alien warships were battered and scarred, their crews exhausted from weeks of losing battles. But in the middle of it all, 3 small human ships floated defiantly. Their hull plating scorched, but their weapons still functional. Admiral Dongwook spoke into the com. "We have a plan, but it's going to sound insane." At this point, Captain, insane might be our only option. Dongwook looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Lieutenant Park Haijin was prepping her fighter for what would probably be a suicide run. Chief Engineer Yoon Sang-ho was jury-rigging weapon systems that were never meant to work. Together, they all knew the odds, but none of them looked afraid. "We're going to base our entire strategy on the most human thing possible," Dongwook explained. "We're going to refuse to lose. No matter what the tactical situation looks like, no matter what the computers say, we're going to keep fighting until we win." The plan was beautiful in its simplicity. The alien fleets would provide massive firepower to keep the Devourers busy, while the humans would coordinate seemingly suicidal attacks designed to overload the construct's processing systems. Every move would be based on emotion rather than strategy. "All human personnel," this is your captain speaking, Dongwook broadcast to his crews. "In 30 minutes, we're going to do the stupidest thing in military history. We're going to win. A battle we can't possibly win, because that's what humans do." The final assault began with the alien fleets launching everything they had at the Devourer formation. Plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, and reality disruptors lit up space like a deadly fireworks show. The constructs absorbed the energy as expected, growing brighter and more powerful with each attack. Then the humans struck. Lieutenant Park Hee-jin launched her fighter directly at the Central Command construct, her engines screaming at maximum burn. Her tactical computer was showing a 0% survival probability, but she wasn't listening to her tactical computer. She was thinking about her little sister back on Earth. about the Zephyrian children who had been consumed by the machines, about everyone who couldn't fight back. This is for everyone who never got a chance to run, she screamed into her cum as her fighter plowed through the construct's outer defenses. The Devourer's targeting systems couldn't track her erratic flight path because there was no pattern to track. She was flying on pure rage and determination. Meanwhile, Sergeant OG-1 and her Marines were inside another construct, holding a position that should have been overrun in minutes. They were outnumbered 1,000 to 1 by mechanical defenders, but they refused to retreat. Every time the Devourers calculated their surrender, the humans just kept fighting, not leaving. O shouted over the sound of plasma fire. "You want this corridor? Come and take it." Her squad had been fighting for 2 hours past the point where they should have been dead, buying precious time for the alien scientists to plant quantum disruptors in the machine core. Captain Kim Tae-Hines' damaged ship was falling apart around him, but he kept pushing forward toward the largest construct. His engines were failing, his hull was breached in 17 places, and his life support was running on emergency power. "Sir, we should retreat," his tactical officer reported. "The ship won't survive another hit, and we better make this one." Count Tae-Hines replied, directing all remaining power to the engines. "For everyone who can't fight back?" His ship slammed into the central Devourer construct with the force of a controlled meteor. The impact created a massive breach in the machine's hull, exposing its core processing center to the vacuum of space. Sparks and alien fluids sprayed into the darkness as the construct's perfect geometry collapsed. The effect rippled through the entire Devourer fleet. Their coordination faltered as they struggled to process the humans' actions. How could beings choose certain death over tactical retreat? Why would they sacrifice themselves for marginal advantages? The ancient machines, built to counter logical warfare, began to overload their processors, trying to understand human stubbornness. In that moment of confusion, the alien fleet struck with everything they had, their weapons finally finding their mark against the staggered constructs. The silence that followed the battle was deafening. Where moments before space had been filled with the screams of dying ships and the thunder of weapons fire, now there was only the soft hum of emergency life support systems and the distant crackling of damaged hulls, cooling in the vacuum. Central Devourer construct, the massive geometric nightmare that had commanded the fleet, hung motionless in space. Its perfect surfaces were cracked and broken, leaking strange fluids that crystallized instantly in the cold. The other constructs had simply ... stopped. Their coordination network had collapsed when the command ship fell, leaving them drifting. Like dead metal moons, Lieutenant Park Hygen's fighter limped back toward the fleet, its hull scorched black in trailing atmosphere from a dozen breaches. Her voice crackled over the cum, weak but triumphant. "Flight control, this is Eagle 1. The central processor is down. I repeat, the central processor is down." On the bridge of the EU's Resilience, Captain Lee Dong-wook slumped in his command chair, a field medic wrapping bandages around his head. Where shrapnel had cut him during the final assault, around him, his crew worked frantically to keep their battered ship operational. The Resilience had taken direct hits from 3 different constructs, but somehow she was still flying. "Damage report," he called out, his voice hoarse from shouting orders during the battle. Chief Engineer Yoon Sung-ho looked up from his console, his face streaked with grease and sweat. "Breaches on decks 4 through 7, main engines at 60%, life support holding but barely. Sir, we shouldn't be alive right now." Through the viewports they could see the remains of the battle. Alien ships drifted past, some intact but many showing the terrible wounds inflicted by Devourer weapons. The lucky ones had crew members working to repair damage. The unlucky ones were silent tombs floating in the darkness. But they had won. Against impossible odds, with primitive weapons and outdated ships, they had actually won. The communication system came alive with dozens of voices speaking in alien languages. The universal translator struggled to keep up with the flood of reports, celebrations, and desperate calls for medical assistance. Through it all, one voice rose above the others. "This is Adenthro, the viewports." They could see the remains of the battle. Alien ships drifted past, some intact, but many showing the terrible wounds inflicted by Devourer weapons. The lucky ones had crew members working to repair damage. The unlucky ones were silent tombs floating in the darkness. But they had won, against impossible odds. With primitive weapons and outdated ships, they had actually won. The communication system came alive with dozens of voices speaking in alien languages. The universal translator struggled to keep up with the flood of reports, celebrations, and desperate calls for medical assistance. Through it all, one voice rose above the others. "This is Admiral Kextorn. To all surviving vessels, the alien," Commander announced. "The Devourer threat has been neutralized. The constructs are powering down across all sectors. The galaxy is safe." A cheer went up from the human crews, but it was a tired cheer. They had given everything they had, and many wouldn't be going home. Captain Kim Tae's ship was gone, along with its brave crew. Sergeant Ogiwan and her Marines were listed as missing, last seen inside a collapsing construct. Price of victory had been high. 3 days later, the survivors gathered in the main assembly hall of the Galactic Council Station. The massive chamber could hold representatives from 100 worlds, but today it felt intimate. Too many seats were empty. It's filled only by holographic memorials to the fallen. Ambassador Velterra stood at the central podium, her crystalline form now glowing with a warm, grateful light. Her voice carried across the chamber with perfect clarity. But there was something different about her now. The desperate fear was gone, replaced by profound respect. 3 weeks ago, we sent out a call for heroes, she began, her words being translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. We asked the galaxy to send us salvation, to send us champions who could face an enemy we could not defeat. And the galaxy answered. She gestured toward the section where the human survivors sat. Captain Lee Dong-wook was there, still bandaged, but standing at attention. Lieutenant Park Hee-jen sat beside him, her arm in a sling but her eyes bright. With pride, the other human personnel looked small and ordinary compared to the towering alien dignitaries around them. But it was not our greatest civilizations who saved us, Velterra continued. It was not the mighty Terran Federation with their planet-cracking dreadnoughts. It was not the ancient Aquarians with their bioships that could reshape matter itself. It was not the Vrexti with their war moons that had conquered 1,000 worlds. She paused, letting her words sink in. It was 3 small ships from a world we barely knew existed, a world we had dismissed as primitive, violent, unsuitable for advanced civilization. The humans came to us with outdated weapons, simple tactics, and ships that our children's toys could outgun. And they saved us all. General Dexara stepped forward, his 6 arms moving in what humans had learned was a gesture of deep respect among his species. Captain Dong-wook, in the name of the Galactic Council, I present you with the Star of Valor, the highest honor we can bestow upon a non-citizen. The medal was a beautiful thing, carved from crystallized starlight and suspended on a chain made from metal that had been forged in the heart of a dying star, but Dong-wook barely looked at it as it was placed around his neck. With respect, General, he said quietly, we didn't do this for medals. We did it because people needed help. And that, said Velterra, is exactly why you succeeded where we failed. The ceremony continued for hours. There were speeches from a dozen ambassadors, presentations of medals and commendations, and formal declarations of friendship between Earth and the Galactic Council. But the moment that would be remembered by history came when a young Zephyrian child, one of the few survivors from the destroyed colonies, approached the human delegation. Thank you, she said in carefully practiced English, offering Dong-wook a small crystal flower. Thank you for saving us. The captain knelt down to accept the gift, and for a moment the great chamber was completely silent. In that instant, every being present understood something fundamental about the humans. They hadn't fought for glory or conquest or even survival. They had fought for a little girl they'd never met on a world they'd never seen. Later, as the human ships prepared to depart for Earth, General Dexara found himself standing beside Captain Dong-wook in the observation deck of the station. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see the construction crews working to build a memorial where the final battle had been fought. Your people are remarkable, the general said. In all my years of military service, I have never seen anything like what you accomplished here. Dong-wook smiled, watching as his crew loaded supplies for the long journey home. I think you had the wrong idea about us, General, They were looking for warriors, soldiers, professional fighters, but that's not what we are. Then what are you? Just people who don't know how to quit. When someone needs help, we help. When something needs fixing, we fix it. When there's a fight that needs fighting, we fight it. It's not complicated. The general's compound eyes studied the human captain carefully. Your government has been contacted about establishing formal diplomatic relations. There will be treaties, trade agreements, cultural exchanges. Your world will become a major power in galactic politics. Maybe, Dongwook shrugged. But right now, I just want to go home and see my family. Politics can wait. As the small human fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, the memorial in the battle zone was completed. It was a simple thing by galactic standards, just a metal plaque floating in space, powered by a small fusion cell that would keep it shining for 1,000 years. The inscription was brief. It's written in over 1,000 languages. To the humans, who answered when heroes were needed, the galaxy remembers. The EU's resilience, U.S. harmony, and the hastily repaired U.S. defiance, too, turned toward home, carrying their crews back to a small blue planet that had just become the most famous world. In the galaxy, behind them, they left a civilization that would never again underestimate the power of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. As the ships disappeared into hyperspace, Ambassador Veltara stood in the observation deck, watching the stars. For the first time in months, she felt hope for the future. The galaxy had learned something important about heroes. They don't always come from where you expect them. The end.